Good morning, everyone. You're watching Chain Trends Crypto Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Humayun Sheikh. The intersection where blockchain meets artificial intelligence is one of the most fascinating concepts to explore. Individually, these two amazing innovations are flipping industries upside down and evolving quickly into incredibly disruptive forces. Fetch.ai combines these two amazing technologies to help build the future digital economy and turn data into information. In the following discussion, I hope to uncover the architecture that makes this possible by exploring what autonomous economic agents are in their current form and what they could evolve to, what a roadmap looks like to a fully decentralized collective learning platform, and potentially smart cities. And if we have time, we'll get some updates on some of the other ecosystems. First, I want to thank everybody for watching. This is not financial advice. This is for education and entertainment. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Very honored to welcome Humayun Sheikh, co-founder and CEO of Fetch.ai. Humayun, thank you so much for doing this. Can you just start by telling us a little bit about it? Could you just tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you all for watching who are. Thank you, Mike, for inviting. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you. My background, I've said it many times, it's been mostly in technology and in commodity trading, algorithmic trading. I was part of DeepMind. I was one of the first investors in DeepMind, looking after some commercialization of machine learning and AI. And so we started Fetch roughly 3.5 years ago. So the background, which probably you want to know about, is I'm always interested in bringing technology and commercializing technology to small and medium enterprise and to the individuals. So that's where my key focus has been for the last 5-7 years. But on top of that, I do also have understanding of the commodities, trading of commodities, algorithmic trading, and that's really, that's my day-to-day, has been my day-to-day in the past. Yeah.
Okay. When I was researching for this interview and preparing, a lot of these concepts and topics are kind of over the average person's head. I wasn't. It seems complicated. But a lot of it is probably on the back end, right? I mean, people using this aren't necessarily, it's not over their head. If you had to explain what Fetch.ai was to maybe a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old, what exactly is it in simple terms?
Let me start with, there are two ways of explaining this, but let me start with one and then we'll see how it goes. So if you imagine Google, I mean, everybody has used Google, even 5-year-olds use Google. And what do you do in Google? And so that's one. The other thing is websites. Everybody knows about websites, how they work, apps, websites, they're all, so everybody knows those. Now, if you think about searching for a website, what is that? It's actually, you want to connect to something to actually get information or do an action. That's what Google enables you to do, Google's search engine. And what a website does is it brings to you either the information or the platform where you can do some kind of action, right? But one thing is for sure, and apps do the same, to be fair. I mean, you go to an app and you request to do an action and you do that and you complete that action. What now, if you think about, is, let's say these websites become very intelligent. Let's say these websites become very active. So when you go to a website, it says, okay, you're here to book some, taxi, a holiday, or you want to buy some sporting goods or whatever. And I already kind of know what kind of things you like, and here's what you should buy. And now think of another Google which says, okay, I'm going to take all of these things and I'm going to make them live for you. So they start interacting with you. So rather than having dumb websites, so you're searching for a hotel, you got thousands of hotels. You have to make the choice. You have to have your selection done. Instead, what you do is you have agents speaking to each other, and your agent actually communicates to you and says, okay, in your interest, I'm finding you these things actively rather than passively. So they're not dumb, they're intelligent, they're responsive, they're dynamic, and they can speak to you as if your assistant could be speaking to you. So that's, in a very simple form, that's what we're doing. So it's the next evolution of websites, of apps, and search engines. That's really, in a nutshell,
Right.
that's what it is. Then you have the components. So, and those components are, for example, the autonomous economic agents, which are agents which look after your interest. Because it's commercial, we call it economic agents because there is economics involved. It doesn't have to be. It could be just informational or entertainment, but those are called just software agents, and people use them, have been using them in games and everywhere. So that's why we came up with the autonomous economic agents, because they have some economic purpose to fulfill. Then you also have a open economic framework, which is the second component of the Fetch stack. That component enables you to connect these autonomous economic agents and carry out this on this framework lays out the structure, how the economics and how the exchange should happen. So what are the conditions of exchange? So for example, you go to a search engine, you search something, there are conditions, you click on it and it takes you to the site, it opens a new window. So those are the kind of conditions and how it collects that data, how it makes the search happen. So that's open economic framework. And then right at the end of it is the substrate where you can run all of this. Now, it could be running on the cloud, it could be running on distributed or decentralized networks, it could be running it's running on a ledger which keeps a record of all your transactions, all your actions. And that's where the substrate, which is your blockchain, comes in. So that's the three components. Hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the Fetch.ai's initiatives is to democratize artificial intelligence. I heard a quote that you said in a Jane King interview that said something along the lines like, "AI is not a choice or an option. AI is mandatory." Can you elaborate a little bit on that thought and tell us a little bit how Fetch lowers the barrier to entry for small to medium businesses or ordinary people to use AI to lower the barrier to entry to actually use the products?
Sure. Yeah. So again, I'm going to carry on with the same theme here. We have the autonomous agents, we have the framework, we have the substrate. Now, if you look at and what that is a multi-agent system, because you have multiple stakeholders. So in the world, in the economics, in the marketplace, in whatever we do, we have multiple stakeholders. So I'm a consumer, I could be a business, I provide you service, I need to find you, and every time I have to find you, I have to use some kind of communication. Now, if you think about where we started from, we used to send postal mail, and then we used to send pigeons, then we came to telephones, then we came from telephones to faxes, and then emails. So that's every time a communication jump happens, you have new business models evolving. And then came the websites, and then we had this e-commerce boom. So the first thing I want to really people to appreciate is how important this method of communication and connection is. So first you have to find somebody. You had Yellow Pages or whatever you want to call them, yell.coms, or
Right.
so you have to find it. Then you had the Google, then you had Yahoo, which was a very basic search engine. We just listed everything. That's a method of connectivity. How do you find something? How do you connect to that something? And then you have the likes of Google, so which is now a lot more advanced. Why? Because it uses machine learning and AI, right? Because it takes all the sites, it extracts all the information, it processes it, But if you now go to a next level of this same connectivity, which we talked about, and you do it via agents where you don't actually need a centralized entity to enable you to connect to different things, you still need that machine learning and AI element for it to be intelligent. So now think about who is in the middle. Nobody. So all these agents work for you, and all the agents work for the supplier and the consumer. So let's leave it at supplier and a consumer. Where are they going to get this machine learning architecture from? Where are they going to get these machine learning algorithms and all these machine learning predictions which improve the efficiency of the whole business? There is no centralized entity. So assume there is no Google, there is no Amazon. And now you have all these agents. They need to create their own machine learning and AI. Now, and that's really the democratization of machine learning and AI, because now you have these agents who are working for you, and businesses and individuals, and they have to still go onto a system and extract that machine learning and AI insights. And to do that, you can't have it in a centralized entity because the training of these models is happening by all these individuals as well. So nobody should own it, because why am I training something and not getting the benefit from it in this new system? So that's why you need a democratized machine learning and AI platform in the middle where people can actually utilize it. And again, I mean, there's a lot more technical things we can talk about, but that's in a very generalized sense.
Right. You mentioned a little bit, and I wanted to unpack just so everybody really has an idea. Today's current state of connectivity and the future of connectivity. Could you elaborate a little bit on that and how Fetch.ai contributes to the future of connectivity?
Sure. So at the moment you have satellite communications are coming along. You have much faster Wi-Fi's and cellular networks. 5G is coming soon. In the very near future, every device will be connected. Every individual will be connected. That should in itself create new business models. It should create new communication models. Now, but the problem we can all see right now is there's too much communication overload, because everything is now online. So you're going to buy groceries, you're going to buy online. You're gonna park the car, you're gonna do that online. You're gonna book a holiday, you're gonna travel, you're gonna drive a car, you have to have communication coming all over the place. All this data, and this is, I'm going to say something very controversial because most people keep going on about data marketplaces. I'm quite anti that kind of concept. So we'll come to that in a minute. But all this information overload that is happening, something has to calm it down. Something has to extract the meaningful communication for me, right? So if I'm taking a journey from point A to point B, all this information that is coming constantly, and on top of that, we have social media going on. We have to be in there, in at least one or two of these channels. I mean, it's either Twitter or it's something. Now, who is managing this for me? When is my brain going to take some rest? And how do I find things which are correct for me? There's so much noise. How do you go through that noise to the right place? You search for something on Google, you got 100,000 results. I mean, you're not going to go through them, right? And then if you have to do that at the same thing for every step of the way, your decision making is quite hampered, and people can actually tweak it, your decision making. We've seen political problems arising because of that. So future of communication is whereby I will be able to communicate directly with the source, not via intermediaries. So I can make the right decision, I can make the right choice, I can actually do transactions which are correct for me, not a hidden transaction which an aggregator wants me to do. And I'm generalizing aggregators here. Not all aggregators are bad, not all aggregators are good. There is a mix of everything, right? However, they do sit in the middle. They do fulfill a purpose, for purpose of trust, because you can transact with them in a trustful manner. But if you solve the trust problem, if you solve the connectivity problem, then you don't need those aggregators to be in the middle. And I'll give you an example. You want to book a hotel room, you want to book a taxi. At the moment, what you do, if you want to book an Uber, I mean, you go to Uber, right? Because you know, I'm going to get connected to the supplier of the service. And if I want to book a hotel, you go to Expedia or somebody like that, or Google even. So why do you do that? It's because you cannot search for all these entities independently unless you go through an aggregator. There's too many, right? Now, if your agent can do that for you, and it can benefit you, and not some centralized entity in the middle, then you don't need that centralized entity, because you can trust your own agent more than you can trust anybody else, because you are controlling that agent in every single way. And then you connect to the right supplier of the service, and the supplier of the service is also controlling their own agent. So where is this need for the intermediary? It disappears, right? The problem is, if I can't find them, then I can't communicate with them. If you wanted to book a holiday and you knew exactly one hotel which you were going to choose, what would you do? You just go direct to them and book it, right? You wouldn't go through 10 other people, pay 15% more. And that's the new form of communication: direct, connected straight to the supplier, to the consumer. The endpoints, the end stakeholders speak to each other, which is what we did. Slowly, we got rid of the exchanges in the middle, right? So I can send you a message which goes direct to you, nobody else. So we're already halfway there, right? But we just need to make it more intelligent, because you don't need an entity in the middle to, put, like the exchanges of the old times, the telephones, you call the centralized entity and then they put you in touch with the, So that's what we're doing right now. Now you replace that with the agents directly, you suddenly have a different peer-to-peer system.
Again, when I was doing research for this, I mean, this whole concept, this is such a cool idea. It's so fascinating. It's exciting. Everything about it is exciting, and just a short time ago, a lot of it seemed, like science fiction, you know what I mean? It wasn't that long ago.
But it's not anymore, right? So you can see that. Yeah.
Yes. And what I was gonna get to is one of the most fascinating things, I think, for anything is neural nets and collective learning networks. And Fetch.ai what is a roadmap for Fetch.ai to get to a fully decentralized collective learning network?
Okay, so let's see where we want to be, and then I can work backwards, right? So where we want to be is, you have an agent, I have an agent, millions of other people have agents who want to make decisions based on what your requirements are, right? So I'm oversimplifying it. So just we can dig into more detail. So now all these things have different purposes, different objectives, different aims. They have different preferences. Now, and every time a transaction happens, you're feeding into this big something which needs to learn from it, right? Because when you learn from it, you can improve the service, you can improve the predictions, you can predict things. It's all about machine learning, and AI is all about that, right? So can I predict what my customer wants before the customer wants it, which is kind of what Amazon does. My order is already on road because they already know that I'm going to buy it tomorrow, right? So that's the purpose of machine learning and AI. My agent needs to learn from me what I want, not what Amazon or somebody else wants, what I want, and it needs to preempt it. So how does it learn from all of this? It needs to learn by tapping into this multiple sets of machine learning models, right? Neural networks, and but each one of them could be for different purpose, but they can then have correlations between each other. So how do you build so starting from day one, that's where we want to be. But how do we get there? So there are no agents right now. There is no framework right now, but we have started some work. So if you think about federated learning, that's what federated learning does, because you have these devices, you have phones, you have IoT devices. They're in different places. They don't want to move data because it's very costly. What you do is in federated learning, you deploy a centralized model which all these IoT devices can train. So we've taken that first step. But what now you have to think is that federated model is still in a centralized entity. How do you make it so that everybody who's training it owns it? And that's where DeFi plays a very important part. So if you now take a model and you put the ownership of that model, rather than in a company, you put that in a DAO, and then split the income of that model to the people who have either trained it or used it, then you have this decentralized machine learning model. So you could start with one, right? So now you started with one. Now you can have multiple, because maybe you can build a preference engine for cars, and somebody is building a preference engine for bicycles. And there's a collection of people who are building the bicycle model and a collection of people who are building the car model. And you have these owners, which could be overlapping, which might not be overlapping, but they're owned by the people who train the model, not by centralized entities who are making a profitability play on it, because they will never let you have the right prediction. They will let you have the prediction which works for them and might be working for you as well. So now you connect these big multiple models, you do transfer learning, you do deep neural networks, and you can start doing some really cool stuff, because you have, let's say, thousands of models. What are the correlations? You might like a black car. That might show, you prefer a latte. Well, I don't know. I mean, what the correlations are, or weather in some place is affecting the mood in somewhere else. All these correlations can be built, but that's a mammoth task, and it's not there yet. But we have taken the step of taking federated learning and democratizing it, so anybody can deploy a model, anybody can train a model, anybody can use a model. There's no restriction on that, and how the ownership belongs to the people who train them.
How different is the architecture from right now, like your DeFi agents and the hospitality and the co-learn program? How different is the architecture? Is this proof of concept already, or is it a totally different thing?
No, this is real, right? So all these agents, they're coming from the same platform, so you don't need to change the platform. So now, and somebody was asking me this, and I was saying that now we're going to start scaling, because what we have is the framework. I mean, it will never be ready, right? Because we're going to evolve this as we keep growing it. It keeps evolving. More requirements will keep coming in. But on the same framework, you could launch a DeFi agent. You can launch any other agent. You can launch a travel agent. You can launch a automotive agent. And the more we launch on the same network, the better, because now your agent can speak to a car company when you're buying a car, or an Uber when you want to book an Uber, and also book a hotel and a table for the restaurant. So now when you travel, you don't travel in silos. You say, I'm going to go at this place. When you go to that place, you might or might not have children. You might or might not have other preferences. You like to stay in a 5-star or 5-star plus or whatever, and you're going to eat somewhere. They're not separate tasks. They're one task. So if all these agents exist on this framework, you should be able to find all your services in one place. So you go in and you say, well, I'm going here for this week. Just arrange my travel, and you can arrange the taxi, you can arrange the hotel, you can arrange the restaurant, you can arrange pet care. You can arrange everything. And it's like when you go for search, you don't go for search Google for one thing and some other thing. They're all in one place. And that's how your services should be.
100% agree. Back to the CoLearn platform, or the CoLearn network. The agents potentially, they communicate and they learn from each other. Is that's
Yes,
pretty much the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I'm imagining is this like ever changing, ever growing, compounding, constantly upgrading type of network. The question I have really is, how does the upgrades actually take place within the network when the agents learn something new, when there's new findings?
So there are multiple places. So agents learn for themselves, right? So you have, you can train your agents, and they hold this model for you that they don't share with anybody. So your information doesn't go out anywhere. And then you have this overall transactional models which keep evolving. So what you need is you need one, the more training goes into that model, the more agents train that model, the better the model gets. And then you can always upgrade the model by deploying a new model. And the agent says, okay, I've got two models. I'm going to query this one. I'm going to query this one. And whichever has the better results, I'm going to go to them. So as you go to them, as the market chooses which model is better, that model starts evolving more and more, and the other one disappears. It's like having a chain. So when you fork a chain, if everybody moves to the fork chain, then that becomes the main chain. So using the same principle, if you take a machine learning model and you say, okay, it's gonna act a bit like a fork of a chain. If that fork is better than the chain itself, slowly everybody will move across to that, and they keep using it. The more they use it, the better it gets. And again, along comes another model which is got some, and there's this one other model which is always looking for correlations, and every time it finds correlations, it connects the models to speak to each other and see how they can evolve. So I mean, we're at the beginning of that. We're not saying it's done, but transfer learning, for example, is the key here. You can actually move one kind of learning into, you can blend it with the other, so that you can start improving each other's results. So it's an evolutionary kind of space where multiple models will keep evolving.
So fascinating. And the total addressable market for something like this is so big, right? It goes across almost every sector. I'm particularly interested in healthcare. Could you talk a little bit about and use some examples of the current model and what's possible with Fetch.ai's CoLearn?
Sure. So CoLearn, what that enables you to do is it enables you to bring multiple stakeholders who have multiple data sets and allows them to train a model. So we did a trial with COVID lung kind of COVID detection system. So what we have is you have a model which sits in in a decentralized way. It's just, and you can invite multiple participants who are hospitals to train that model, because they have data set. They can train that model without sending the data anywhere. They can update the weights, and the model can update itself. And what that enables you to do is you could be in any part of the world, right? You can still train the same model. Now, what that brings is inclusion. So maybe a variant of COVID in Africa is a little bit different to a variant of kind of COVID in the United States. So you can get a much bigger picture of what it looks like, and you can enable these stakeholders to train one model and benefit from that. So it can exponentially improve the performance of the model. So that's step one. How do you bring multiple people to collaborate on that? We did a CoLearn art project, which was quite it's just something to show people that it's not a complex thing to interact with these models, and you can easily interact with them even if you don't understand what the model does, or you don't have any technical knowledge. It's nothing to be scared of, and it's in the kind of same spirit as it's going to be very essential for everybody to interact with these models. We do that all the time right now, just don't know about it. So at this point in time, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, let's build these new models. Let's give people this space to build models and invite other people to join them to build them. And if you have useful models, people can actually monetize those models, because the people who bring the model together, train the model together, they own the model. Nobody else does. Yeah? They own it. And because they own it, anybody, so for example, if you had an X-ray and you wanted to find out if there is COVID, the model might charge you maybe 1 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent, whatever you want to, agree on. And you vote on that. And so whatever the revenue is generated from that goes to the holders of the model. And that's step one, because now you kind of saying, okay, let's start building models here. You don't need to be a big company to build a model. You can be an individual, you can be a researcher, you can be just a person who is interested in it and goes to open source and deploys the model. You can then train them, and then you can start selling it. So when people say data marketplaces, I say model marketplaces, or, to be fair, because what is data? I mean, I don't want anybody to have my data, but I'm quite happy to train a model where I know my data security is not compromised, and I could generate some revenue. I'm not interested in somebody paying me $100 a year and takes all my data, because it's not. That's what a data marketplace would look like. And I'm a company, I'm willing to sell my data. I mean, really, that's not a scalable model. What is more of a scalable model is where people can use insights from your data model and then pay you for the insights, because the utilization factor of that is probably 1,000 times more than somebody just buying a data set.
And correct me if I'm wrong. What's unique about Fetch.ai's architecture is that it could share the trends within data sets and not the actual data itself.
Correct.
Is that, and that's how?
That's
okay.
Correct.
So yeah, that's not. That's a breakthrough. Am I right about that?
It is and it isn't, because in federated learning you do something very similar, right? Okay. It's what the next leap is, that how do you improve it so it becomes utilizable by everybody, and that's certainly a big step forward. I wouldn't say it's and putting it all together in a way that you have a commercial utilization of it beyond one company, and anybody and everybody can benefit from it. That's for sure not been done.
Now, how far away are we from something like this? Is it a decade away?
No,
5 years away?
No. It's months away.
Months away. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I mean, we will see. We will see some commercialization next year. This is not a. I wouldn't call it now these days. I mean, with what we have been doing, this is not a technology of future. It's technology of now. So we're looking to commercialize it now.
Wow.
So it's maybe a year or 2 years. That's it.
Okay.
It will keep evolving, because we, again, as I said, new business models will come, new developments will come, because once you get onto that track, then things start becoming different.
Right. One other thing, healthcare, you could manufacturing, finance, I believe, was another area that CoLearn could be useful, right, for fraud detection. What about supply chain? Is that CoLearn, or would that be something like outside of the CoLearn product suite? Would that just be something else? Because Fetch.ai can kind of disrupt supply chain as well, correct?
Well, so now think about supply chain. Let's think what supply chain is made up of. So supply chain is made up of manufacturing, so raw material, manufacturing, transportation, shipping, utilization, and and the final product, sales, and financing of the whole supply chain. So you want to buy a raw material, you want to borrow money to buy it. I'm not saying everybody does, but I mean that's the supply chain finance. So you buy it, and then once you've sold the end product, you pay for it. So that's the supply chain finance again. So if you look at the whole supply chain, what you need to have models which show you the trends. You have to have models which are just in time type of approach. So you manufacture when you need it, not to put it in a warehouse, because that's inefficient use of capital, right? So if you're making 1 million pieces of this widget and you're only selling 250,000, you're not using the capital efficiently. You're not using your resource efficiently. So a efficient supply chain takes care of all of that, and this is done via models. But now you have these multiple stakeholders who are not willing to share data with you. I mean, you don't know what shipping company is going to do. When am I going to be able to ship, or am I going to have some problem in my supply chain? I'm manufacturing steel. Is my raw material going to turn up? Is the price going to go up? How do I hedge it? How do I do this? How do I do that? I mean, there's all these components. They're all based on, and could be based on, these machine learning models, because you could predict trends, you could forecast demand, you can forecast production. So all of that is a component of co-learn, right? Because you could bring in multiple things. You can bring in the housing market trends. You can bring in what the raw material looks like, what the weather is going to do in where the raw material is coming from. So, and this is not something which doesn't happen. It happens, but it happens in a very centralized big company way. But what we are saying is the small and medium enterprise can also use it. They can use it because if the models were available, they will use it. You could sell them a service, you could sell them the predictions, and to make the supply chain efficient, you need those models. But then you also need this agent-based system, because all these components are individual stakeholders. At the moment, if you individually try and put this whole supply chain together, it's quite a cumbersome affair, right? So, and you have to build, and if you're building it from a top down, what you're building is a complex system, a very complex system. But instead, if you break it down into small chunks, like let's assume that each component is an agent, then, and they are connected to each other, and they have the intelligence to find out from each other what's going on and report back, then you could build much more complex systems, which are a lot more efficient, which manage themselves effectively. We're a bit far away from that. We're not there yet, because the mindset has to change first. Technology is available. It's the mindset that is not available.
Right. Wow. That's a great point. Last question I have before I let you go is if you could tell us a little bit about some of the partnerships and collaborations that Fetch.ai has and is working with. I was impressed by some of the current partnerships that they have.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can't give you something which we haven't announced yet. So, as you can imagine, because of all the corporate structures. So, there is a reason why German manufacturers, which we announced in our IAA mobility, are working with us. I mean, Bosch being at the forefront of it. We're also working, we're collaborating with all these automotive manufacturers as well. Now, what you have to understand is, where is the value? So if you have a car, at the moment you have chip shortages, right? As you all know, which is a supply chain issue. Just as a reference, but where an automotive company manufactures a car, the biggest component now, which is slowly becoming bigger and bigger, there are two bits. Where one is the whole chipset, because they're now more and more controlled by the chip rather than humans. I mean, all the components are looked after by that. But also the user interaction is very much electronics based. So Bosch is a manufacturer of all those components. So so if you look at all these cars, they use headlights, which are Bosch, windscreen wipers, which are Bosch, the control systems, which are Bosch, because those are the systems which need monitoring and which need controlling, where the user can interact with them. So our partnerships are going to be more focused uh, on companies which can utilize either the collective learning or the multi-agent systems and embed them in the product so that everybody can start using them. Now, I mean, a question I get asked most is like, I mean, are you going to find a collaboration with some big intermediary in the middle of the aggregators? I mean, why would an aggregator want to collaborate with us, right? So what we're saying is we don't need the aggregators, and you're not going to build partnership with an aggregator because it's not about it's not we're not going out of our way to say, well, we're going to disrupt the aggregation market, because they provide a very useful service. Now, some places you will enable the aggregators to become more efficient, for sure, and we're not going to go from 0 to 100 in 2 minutes. So we have a whole kind of route to go through. So our partnerships are mainly working with organizations who can take the technology, improve their current models, and bring that out. So in terms of automotive, hospitality, there are small wins which the agent-based system needs to actually scale, and that's what the objective is over the next coming few months.
So basically, any industry that's fragmented with intermediaries, Fetch.ai is at some point going to get there.
We are vertical agnostic. Multi-agent systems are vertical agnostic. Yes, it needs some tweaking, but it's pretty much there. So anything which can use a multi-agent system to improve efficiency is the vertical we want to be in.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions I had. If you want, let us know what are websites, social medias, anything that you want to tell the audience before we go.
Yeah. So our website is Fetch.ai. Simple as that. And I mean, you can probably put that in the bottom or some of the screen. But we invite developers. We invite individuals who are interested in this space to come and send us a message or work with us, explore the new way of doing things, this multi-agent system. It's when you start thinking about it, when you start looking around, you'll see most systems are multi-agent systems and could be improved to no end if you start deploying these solutions. So we're really welcoming developers, we're really welcoming small and medium-sized enterprise who wants to explore how they can benefit from it, to come and contact us. We're quite happy to work with individuals and companies. We kind of actively inviting them to come along and speak to us.
That's beautiful. That's the open, the open network and the decentralized thing. That's a beautiful thing. Well, Humayun, thank you so much for joining. If you guys are still watching, thank you so much. Please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. There are links in the description for Fetch.ai's website, as well as their Twitter handle. So make sure you guys follow them. Again, Humayun, thank you for taking the time. Appreciate everybody watching.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.